interested, we are live on both Facebook and YouTube. So I just want to welcome you all to our first Pathways to Becoming a Lawyer event. Mashallah, we have so many amazing lawyers in our community. And so I was actually talking to Jawad, who's the president of the Palestinian American Bar Association. He has his kids in our programs. And I was telling him how at PAC we have, I don't want to say it's a curse, but it's like a blessing that everyone who works at PAC ends up a lawyer. So if you have an internship, all of our law interns, anyone who's taken our civic engagement position, there's been specific positions that we get, and everyone ends up in a lawyer position. Ends up, going to law school, passing their bar, and becoming a lawyer. So I was like, we need to have an event. And then Joanne got right to it and got our amazing panelists here today that are very big and influential people in our community that are also huge supporters of PAC. And we're really excited to be partnering with the Palestinian American Bar Association for our first formal event, and hopefully this is the first of many more. So if any of you have any feedback, if there's something more specific that you want us to go into, even if it's like different ideas of events, whether it's to do with the legal field or beyond, please do come and reach out to us. I want to give a huge round of applause to the Palestinian American Bar Association, so let's give them a round of applause. And I think it's actually amazing that this even exists. Like, let's all think about that for a second. We have a Palestinian American Bar Association, which honestly I think I know it's national, but I think it's amazing that this is happening. And I'm sure the New Jersey one is the best one, right? Yes. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to Warda Hassan, who is our moderator for the evening, and I will be here if anyone has any questions.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am so excited that we're hosting this event with PAC. Anybody who knows me knows how much I encourage the next generation of Palestinian American attorneys. I think this is a really important field and a good field for you guys to get into. So I'm so happy that you guys are here. So first, thank you to PAC for hosting us, and just a little bit about the Palestinian American Bar Association. We are a group of attorneys, over 600 Palestinian American attorneys from all across the United States, who join to network, to build community, and to have events like these. So inshallah, when you guys are in law school, and even before law school, and especially when you become attorneys, make sure you join, so you always have this continuous network of support. So I know I heard a few of you guys are from high school, some of you guys are in college, some of you guys have finished. And the reason that this event is called Pathways is because there really isn't one set way. It's not college and right away law school. It really, the pathway to becoming a lawyer looks different for each person, and inshallah you'll hear that from our panelists today. So I'm going to give a really brief background in how to become a lawyer. I'll speed through it, that way you guys can have an opportunity to speak with our panelists and you can ask more questions. I know I'm a resource, Pab is a resource, and I'm sure our panelists are more than open to you guys speaking to them as well. So before going into the presentation, I'll just introduce myself and the panelists. So my name is Warda Hassan. I am an attorney licensed in New York and New Jersey. This December will be 2 years of being an attorney. I work at the Legal Aid Society in juvenile justice, so I represent young kids who are charged with crimes. I advocate for them inside the courtroom and outside of the courtroom. And then during my law school time, I focus more on constitutional rights and civil rights when it comes to underrepresented communities. So we can talk more about that later, but I'll pass it to Amani.
Hi everybody, my name is Amani Taha. I'm a corporate transactional attorney at a law firm here in New Jersey. I'm licensed to practice in both New York and New Jersey, and primarily what I do is help companies and private equity firms, which if anyone's interested in knowing what that is, I'll explain it to you, but it's not that interesting, buy and sell companies, basically. So my day-to-day practice looks very different than I think the average attorney. I've never been to a courtroom and don't anticipate that I'll ever be in a courtroom. So it's an alternative to what we typically hear or like think about when we think of lawyers. And very excited to be here.
My name is Khaled Bashirwish. I'm the Deputy County Attorney in Sullivan County. And I am like an in-house lawyer for a company, but it's for a municipality. So we have a HR department, we have departments, a contract department with a layer of municipal laws that really govern us. I do represent the county, so that means that from contracts to employment law to appearing in federal court, it is a really dynamic position that I feel lucky to be in. It's really challenging because you really can't be an expert, meaning I would take Manny to be an expert in, let's say, acquiring a company, which is good. On the flip side, you really do, from my experience, you get to participate in different areas of law, and you see how they kind of interconnect.
Assalamu alaikum. I don't need the microphone, I'm loud as well. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mahmoud Mustafa. I am licensed here in New Jersey. I've been practicing law for 18 years now, believe it or not. I started practicing law in the federal criminal defense courts, which was quite the adventure. And now I am a solo practitioner, which means I have my own firm, and I practice primarily doing residential and commercial real estate transactions. And one of my claims to fame is I was the attorney that helped close on this building. All right.
Thank you all. Okay, so let's get into the pathway to becoming a lawyer. So, complete overview, obviously start with your high school degree. You go get your bachelor's degree in college, and a lot of people ask this question to me. It does not matter what your major is. It does not have to be a criminal justice major. It does not have to be a pre-law major. Really do what interests you. And then there's applying to law school, and getting a Juris Doctorate, taking the bar exam, and becoming a licensed attorney. Those little dashes between circle is a lot. There's a lot of stuff in between it, which we'll get into. So preparing for your legal career in college. So in college, of course, as you all know, no matter what field you go into, you should work hard to strengthen your GPA. I really recommend going to your professor's office hours. Don't underestimate office hours. That's where you can get to know your subject more, your professors. And I really recommend connecting with your pre-law advisor. I promise you your college has one. Even if you graduated, you can reach out to them again and just ask them for support as you navigate the law school application process. And as you all know, joining clubs is really important, and just continue to take classes that interest you. And then in college, to build up your resume, which will help you for your law school application, it's really helpful to get internships and just continue to network with other lawyers. I know sometimes it can be a little bit hard because most internships seem like they're for law students, but I promise you there are a lot of internships out there for college students as well. I remember when I was in college, it was really hard to find an internship, so I had reached out to my local courthouse, Bergen County Courthouse. I literally emailed random people, and I was like, I'm a college student, I'm interested in law, I'll help you with whatever you need, I want to intern for you. And I ended up being able to get a judicial internship with just a judge doing clerical work, but I was able to learn more and observe, get connected to a different judge, and all of that strengthens your future application and just like your mindset, being in the courtroom or even behind the scenes, seeing all the work that goes into being a lawyer. Do any of our panelists have anything to say about some things to do during college?
Yeah, I don't even think you have to intern at a law firm or intern at a courthouse, but it is really important to have an internship to like understand what it's like to like work full time. So when I was in college, through a program called the Washington Center that like basically accepts students from all over the country, they'll match you with an internship in Washington, D.C., and you get like school credit for it. So I, that summer, interned for Amnesty International, and not in any kind of like legal position, but more in like a human rights research and advocacy position. And there's a lot of stuff like that, that it's not, you're not in their legal department, but you're still getting like research work, which is very important when you become a lawyer. You do a lot of research, you do a lot of writing. So even if it's not like directly correlated in your mind to the law, it's really important to get some kind of like internship experience.
Yeah, I'd add on to that by saying that I didn't do that, but what I would suggest is do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. I think that college really should change you as a person. So whether or not you graduated, whether you're still in high school or starting college, you I think you should do something that you really don't see yourself doing. So if, for example, you're looking with math, and let's say you don't know how to express yourself with writing, take a writing class, take a literature class. And the flip side too, if you're more arts oriented, you need to learn how to, and I think no matter what you do, whether it's law or finance or social work, you should learn how to think logically. What I mean by that is this formal logic is really the key to talking like a professional. It is something that you need to train in, I think, in any profession. Language is really tricky. It's something to master in, and I speak for myself by saying that I think learning the English language as someone that was born and raised here, like many of you, it is a lifelong journey. So I think that you do something that's uncomfortable, you gain those skills, and even if you don't choose law, you'll be well prepared for any profession you choose.
I have a little different take on this. I think just doing anything, I think working somewhere, I think developing people skills is hugely important. I'll just give you my experience. I think this is one of the most helpful things that has helped my career is literally working in a restaurant as a waiter for 5 years through college. Every weekend I would come home and I would work as a waiter in a restaurant in Waldwick, which is right by your neck of the woods. And just being on your feet, having to talk to people is a skill that, you might not be able to learn in school, but you will learn in a job if you're doing some type of sales or anything like that. So I suggest that you develop your people skills. I know the world is turning to more, like we're all computerized and everything is like phones and computers and ChatGPT and AI and all this stuff. But I think having the people skills and being able to talk, like when we got in here and we had to break the ice, like being able to just be comfortable with who you are and speaking in front of people, it's a skill that you should look to develop, because I think that'll help you in any career, whether it's law or any type of law. That'll be a skill that's going to help you progress and prosper in that field.
Thank you, that was amazing. I'll also add, for example, I was interested in immigration law at first, so I volunteered not even as a lawyer or as a law student, just as a regular person helping out at Welcome Home Jersey City, like a refugee organization. So I just engaged with refugees, and I was able to not just like have this fulfilling experience and interact with the communities that I wanted to represent, but of course, obviously, it looked good when I'm applying to law school that I engage with communities that I'm saying that I want to represent. So I think that was all really great. Thank you guys. So preparing for the LSAT is a big question. LSAT, does anybody know what the LSAT is? Most people know? Okay. So the LSAT is a 2.5-hour test. It's not like a test that examines how well you memorize laws or anything like that. It's really a skills-based test, and that's why practice really makes perfect. And you usually, if you're in college, most people take it either their junior year of college or the summer before their senior year. I know some people who took it their senior year of college. I know some people who took like a year or 2-year break and then took it after that. So it really, really depends on you and your timeline. And how long should you study? That also really depends on you. Most answers in the law is it depends. So this is also it depends on your preference. Think about when you were studying for the SAT, like how long did it take you to study? How much time can you commit? Because I know everybody has their own personal commitments, whether that's you're still getting your master's degree or you're working, you're taking care of your family, whatever it is. But if you really want a number, typically it is 3 to 4 months of focused studying. Do you guys agree with that? Yeah. And then I also really encourage using study prep as much as you can, like Kaplan, Blueprint, Princeton Review. Some of these resources are free, but there are also like more advanced help that you could get by paying. I know also financially sometimes it's difficult, so a hack that you guys can use is your local library. If you have a library card, you can call your library, you can tell them you want a specific book, and they would literally get you an LSAT prep book. And you can write directly into the book and study from there, in addition to a lot of the free resources online. Does that make sense? Anything about the LSAT?
I think preparation is the key. The more less nervous you'll be. You'll know taking a test is a skill, and they actually teach you how to read a prompt, so you don't just read it from top to bottom. You read like a snippet of the first part, you look for keywords, and if you learn those skills early on, you'll do a lot better.
So what makes a strong law school application? Let me ask you guys, how many of you are in the middle of applying to law schools? Okay. How many of you next year will be putting in law school applications? Okay, so a few of you. So this is good for you guys, and also just to keep in mind, even before you go into college, what makes a strong law school application? GPA, your LSAT score, resume. They'll ask for a personal statement, kind of like the college essays that you guys wrote or will write to get into college, and then letters of recommendation. I really want to emphasize, if you're looking at this list and if you're thinking my GPA isn't good or my LSAT score isn't good, I don't want you to be dissuaded from this. It doesn't have to be all of it, but it could be the case where you have a strong GPA, but you're not a good test taker, so your LSAT score isn't the best. Still apply, still talk to people, still network with people around you. I think especially in our community, especially as Pasadena Americans, we want to uplift you guys. We want to be in these spaces more. So I promise you, it's not annoying. Reach out to the lawyers that you know. Now you know us. Reach out to us, and we'll support you every step of the way. Anything to add about the law school application process?
Yeah, it's like they look at your application holistically, so there's not like one thing they're gonna see and then like throw out your application. They do look at the whole thing. And even if you say like, oh, I think I have an average GPA, I think I have an average LSAT score, maybe it's not great, but it's okay. I think the biggest thing that I've always been told is there's a lot of emphasis on the personal statement. And that's where you just take 2 double-space, so it's like a very short statement, just to talk about like who you are and what you want to do. And I think that if you take time, I think I wrote my personal statement for like 3 months. You know, like I took a really long time with it. And so you can always like strengthen other parts of your application if you feel like you fell behind on 1 or 2 points. So I think I would emphasize a lot on the personal statement. Some schools have different guidelines on how long it has to be and what it has to be about. So make sure you're paying attention to that. But for the most part, it'll be 1 2-page statement that you submit to everyone, and it'll just be about like you.
Yeah, I'm interested to know if you guys agree with me, but if I could put like a number of 1 through 5, the most important one, I think that LSAT score would probably be the top, because if you have, let's say, a good GPA but a not so good LSAT score, that might say your GPA to someone that's looking through thousands of applications. That's not going to stand out. I had an average LSAT score, but to add to what Manny said, I think GPA or personal statement might help. But you have to remember that these people are looking through hundreds and hundreds of applications, and the higher the score, the LSAT score, I think everything else will be a lot easier, and the personal statement will support that you are someone who could do well at this law school that you apply to.
Yeah, I think focusing on the GPA and the LSAT score is really where I would, put the time in, put the hours in, don't cheat the system. You put the work in, the results will be there.
I think this also goes back to connecting with your pre-law advisor at your campus. I know I have one of my family members was like, I don't have a pre-law advisor. I Googled it and there was one, but they like to hide themselves, and a lot of people don't like to do work, unfortunately. You gotta put in that effort to reach out to them and really be like persistent. It's a good thing to be persistent in this. Persistent like inside of yourself. Don't give up. Don't feel discouraged by anything on this list isn't as strong as it should be. Like really, really persist, because I'm really telling you guys we need you in these spaces and we want you to succeed. So now I'm gonna talk about law school. I'll go through this really, really quickly. This is like its own course to talk about how to prep for law school. But your first year is really focused on the courses like constitutional rights, civil procedure, contracts. It's really study heavy, like reading, a lot of reading, writing. Then once you get to your second and your third year of law school, that's when you get more, you can
choose the classes that you like, and you'll get more hands-on experience, like something called clinics, which is where you can get hands-on experience in the courtroom or in, even outside of the courtroom, like with contracts, with civil law, whatever it is. And that's when you can really start figuring out what is it that you want to do. Another common question I get is, do I need to know what I want to do or what area I want to practice in before going into law school? You don't. Law school is really where you figure it out. I started law school thinking I wanted to do immigration law and international law, and now I ended up doing juvenile justice, which I feel like I love so much. So that's what law school is for, to figure out what you want to do. Any comments on law school?
Yeah, law school is, it's really a dedication. You really got to commit. It's not something that you just decide to do and then take it lightly. My first year, I tell you, most of my friends didn't see me for a year. Probably into the second year as well, like our 2L, the first semester was a lot of like studying, and it was still really, really hard. It's a lot of prep time. You know, my nephew, I just saw him, he's in here, he started his first year of law school. So no one sees him. I was on the way here talking to my son, and he was like, I told him, Dean's gonna be here, he smiled, and then no one sees Dean. That's what this looks like. It's, no one sees you. You're committed to learning and getting through law school and trying to master it, really. You don't wanna just get by, you wanna do well, because if you do well in law school, it's gonna be a pretty rewarding career after, for the most part. And I think for me, the third year, it was like, for me, I don't know how it was for you guys, it was a more cruise control for me, because I just kind of figured out how to study, what works for me, and I think you develop those skills in the first year, year and a half.
Yeah, I think that nobody comes out of law school saying, wow, that was a great experience. You know, it's tough. That's because it's tough. And it is a little traumatic in the sense that you gotta change the way you think, and you're getting these new skills, and you know, you have to allow yourself to fail or not get to where you want. It is a struggle. You know, you might not. I, you know, doubted myself the first year, which is the toughest year, and I do think it gets better. Like, you know, just like in undergraduate school, so by that first year or that first semester, it gets better as you go along. But if you do have that intention, you know, as we talk a lot about intention in our culture, and I think that if you do have that, I think you could survive and excel.
Yeah, law school is nothing like undergrad. There is no like skipping homework and skipping readings. And even me, as someone who was born and raised in the States, I really struggled to read the cases that I was assigned. And you're assigned a lot of cases every single night that you have to read before the next day. And there's a lot of them are from like the 1800s and the 1700s. So you're just reading a whole different kind of English. So it is very difficult in the beginning, I agree. I actually moved to New Jersey to go to law school. I'm originally from Florida. And I just like never talked to my family. They didn't know what was going on because it was like you're in class all day and then you come home at 4 o'clock and you're reading till you go to sleep. So it definitely takes a lot of dedication. And I think if you are not sufficiently dedicated, you're not sure that it's for you, it's just going to make it that much harder and like more impossible.
And if I may add, the first day of law school, which there was a lot of pressure, you know, you're nervous, it's just a natural feeling going into a new world. The first day of law school, you know, they give you work to do before your first day of school. And I think it's called the Socratic method.
Yeah.
So the Socratic method is you're just in class and get up, stand up, and answer the questions. The teacher is literally drilling you in front of the entire class with questions. So I remember I got called on the first class, the first day, it was like horrific, but I don't even know what I was saying, but I kind of just gave answers, and the teacher appreciated me just trying to give an answer. I didn't know what I was reading because, like you said, the stuff is so ancient, a lot of it, and the language is, you got a Black's Law dictionary trying to, like every other word, you're looking, what does that mean? So it's really, really challenging, but like you said, with the intention, if you really know what you want to do, and this is, like I said, you have to know that that's what you want to do. Don't go to law school to just decide, oh, I don't want to be a lawyer, or I don't want to practice law. Although there are areas of the world you can go into with a law degree, it's still great, but if we need lawyers, we need Palestinian lawyers, so we want you to become lawyers and, you know, fight the good fight that we all have to fight as a
think also, I think being a law student is a flex, to be honest. Those 3 years, every time I can say I'm a law student, it was the best thing ever. But the reason that it's so, like, amazing to people is because it is hard work, and it is worth it at the end of the day, too. I know I always used to hear, like, you're so smart, you're in law school, and I always disagreed. It was really just that I was determined, I wanted to do this, I wanted to fight the fight, as everyone's saying, and that's what will get you through. And I promise it gets easier as you keep on going.
And just one more thing, because
Yeah.
like, what I mean by fight the fight is not necessarily everyone's gonna go into the courtrooms and fight the fight. You're fighting the fight in being Palestinian in a corporate law firm. So that's what I mean, like, just our presence in these places is going to change things. So it's not necessarily, we're not fighting we're not defending Mahmoud Khalid, all of us. There's only a few people that can do that. But fighting the fight is just getting there as a Palestinian.
Thank you. So,
Yeah, I want to extend on what Mahmoud said. It's a nice way to think about it because, you do it for yourself, you do it for a larger sense. You do feel connected, I think, in that way.
Absolutely.
So the next step after you graduate law school 3 years is the bar exam. This is usually taken in July, which is like maybe a few months after you graduate around May. And that's a really intense exam, as you guys know. It's a 6-hour exam, 2 days long, and it's also about 2 to 3 months of studying. PAVA and just other attorneys that I know really supported me through this time too, and just connecting to resources. So don't be intimidated by this as well. You can do it, you definitely can do it. So once you pass the bar exam, you submit your application and just get sworn in as a lawyer. And there really is, I can't think of top moments in my life, just being sworn in was just like the best moment of my life, and having my family watch me, so, and just being excited for the future. So inshallah, you all get to experience that as well.
Just to say that I remember the bar exam, I sat next to an Israeli, and I said, wow, look at this, we always have to be neighbors no matter where we are.
Me too. I actually did sit next to an Israeli, and her machine broke down in the middle of us taking the bar exam, and she just like kept screaming, and I was like, for my people, alhamdulillah, I passed, so it worked out.
The person who sat next to me at the bar exam left in the middle of the test and never came back.
I'll just say, for me, the bar exam, I had a nickname. My friends called me Osama during the bar exam because I didn't have time to go get a haircut. So I had a big beard. I was walking around the campus. It wasn't really a campus, it's Seton Hall Law School. I had a giant beard. I didn't shave. It was just like literally boot camp. It was 12, 13, 14-hour days for 2 months straight studying. And like they said, passing the bar exam, getting those results was just one of the most rewarding feelings of all time. I don't remember who the heck sat next to me. I was so focused on passing.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm going to go into more specific questions with the panel, and I want you guys to know if you have questions in your mind, keep them. We're going to have time at the end dedicated. But like I've been saying throughout this whole thing, we're all a resource for you guys, and the Palestinian American Bar Association is definitely a resource for you. So we'll shift. If anyone wants to take a break to grab some drinks or food in the back, please feel free to. And we can just start with some of our questions. Or nobody, that's also fine. Okay, so I'll start maybe this way. Can you share more information about your journey to becoming a lawyer and maybe what inspired you to choose this career?
The journey was, I started with, I didn't know I was going to be a lawyer when I went to college. I did finance. I worked on Wall Street for 2 years after college. I hated it. It was the rat race. I left Wall Street, didn't know what to do. A friend of mine says, let's take the LSAT. My journey is a little different than most. I took the LSAT. Abdul Majid, who people know, he's a judge now. Abdul Majid, who's one of my good friends, one night comes by my house, says to me, I was like, where you been? Again, where you been? He's like, I just finished my first year of law school. What? What do you mean your first year of law school? No clue he was in law school. He's like, and I'm like, I took the LSAT a while back. I think I might want to go to law school because I was kind of trying to find where I was in the world. And he helped me actually get into law school, Seton Hall. So that was kind of my journey. It was like unconventional. It just kind of happened. Although I knew I wanted to do it when I decided, and the influence was really, number one, prestige, right? It's really prestigious. Family, father, Allah yarhamah, he wanted a doctor. And I'm like, hey, this is a doctor's degree. A lot of people don't know this is a doctorate, right? But when I told my dad that, all right, it's time to go to law school, it was like, let's go. He was like so excited and happy. Some family members were like, oh, here he goes again, changing his career. But I knew that's what I'm saying. When you're ready to go, it's a commitment, it's a full commitment. And that's kind of how this happened for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wish I could show you, what I was like in high school because it's funny. I think if there's anyone that can testify to what I was like, it would be, I think most of you might know Sister Ian Romali. Do any of you know her? She's a teacher at El Hikmah. If you ever see her, ask her what your nephew was like in high school as a younger person. And I took control of my own. I was not really studious, but then in college I did start to take my education seriously. I studied philosophy as an undergrad, and if you guys want to play a prank on your parents, just tell them that you're going to study philosophy. You can see your mom cry, and just tell her, no, I'm not going to study philosophy. But I was really interested in that for a lot of reasons. But I think that if people say, like, what's the best major to select? I don't think there's one major that is really going to be good or bad. It's really the wrong way to think about it, in my view. I think that if you develop critical thinking skills, so if you know how to take control of your thinking, I know that's a weird thing to say, thinking about thinking, but different subjects and different schools and different teachers just really do a nice way of bringing it out in you, and they help you learn to do that. But I went into, from there, I went to teaching. I was a teacher for 5 years. My first year, I went straight to Bahrain, a foreign country, thinking that I learned Arabic, Khaliji Arabic. It's not the same as Palestinian Arabic. And I came back and taught where I'm from the Bronx. I taught the South Bronx for 4 years, and I liked it, but I grew out of teaching, and I met someone who I started to read Supreme Court decisions on my own, and I started to see myself, as an attorney. And I encourage you to think about enlarging yourself. I think that's a nice idea. And if you can do that, even if it's not law, if you can see yourself become a doctor or some kind of profession that you can see yourself doing. That's a nice feeling, and that happened to me. And I chose law. I love teaching, but I think that those years in teaching helped me to connect with people, and to pick on what we said earlier. I see myself as a teacher primarily, and I do take that with me when I'm trying to explain to someone. You're dealing with adults, of course, in our world. You're dealing with adults, and they may not understand something. So if you could, for me, I teach them at their level, no matter where they are. So that's been a nice way to take the skills from my teaching experiences as well.
I always wanted to be a lawyer, and I can't really tell you why. It was really from when I was young, and I don't know if it was just because I was like loud, and so everyone was like, "Oh, you're so loud, you should just go be a lawyer," and like that stuck in my head. But there was really like no moment where I was like, "Oh, I really want to be a lawyer." I just felt like it was always going to be my natural path, and it's very strange that I think I can't come up with the reason why, but I ended up going straight through. So I went from high school, straight to college, straight to law school, which is actually not common. I did not meet a lot of people in law school. I think I maybe only met one other person in law school who also went straight through. And I studied international studies in undergrad. I actually never met a lawyer. I did not know any lawyers. Again, I'm from Tampa, so there wasn't a huge Muslim community there when I was growing up. So I really did not have any insight at all into law school, what it was like to be a lawyer. I just had this like idea in my head that, that was what I was gonna be. A friend of mine in college who was just 1 year ahead of me was kind of the same way where she knew she was gonna be a lawyer, and I almost just kind of like learned from her what the application process was gonna be. So she was the one who said, well, you need to start studying for the LSAT now, and you should take it now, and you have to write a personal statement, and she was guiding me, and she also didn't know any lawyers, so we were kind of teaching ourselves, and I think that's a really important nod to like community, and even if you don't know 100 lawyers, you may know somebody who is applying to law school. And so at the very least, I ended up going to law school at the same time with 3 of my other friends, and so it was very much let's just figure this out together, and we'll get there, and like we all did end up getting there, but it just goes to show you there really is no like one path to law school. There's a lot of different ways you could go about it, and most of the people I met in law school took a year or 2 off to be a paralegal, or to work, like an everyday 9 to 5 before they, took the LSAT and started.
I had a similar experience than Manny. I went from high school to college to law school. They call it K to JD when you go to law school. And I definitely was, I think, one of the youngest, if not the youngest in my class. Most people were like 25 and older, some 30, some in their 40s. A lot of people had like career changes, like they were doing computer engineering, like very random things, and then decided to come to law school. So like everyone said, like it really doesn't have to look one way. I knew I wanted to become a lawyer during high school. I also went to Cincinnati people here. And I just remember feeling frustrated about what was happening in Palestine, and I wanted to like have the tools and like the experience, the speech, the writing necessary for in the future to be able to advocate for our people, whether that's like the land sale events that happen right here, like in our backyards, or just on the international stage, which is what I thought I would originally do. So I focused a lot of that during my law school time, like working for Palestine Legal or the Center for Constitutional Rights, if you guys are familiar. We can focus on like free speech in Palestine, things like that. And then because I wanted more courtroom experience, I became a public defender, and that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. Just getting that experience, always in the back of my mind, like for Palestine, whether currently just doing things on the side or just inshallah one day, just like that being my 24/7. So that's my journey. So I'm going to ask like maybe 2 more questions to our panelists, and then I want to throw it out to you guys to see if you guys have any questions, because I really want it to be beneficial to you guys. So I'll ask you guys to maybe explain your practice area of law and what your day-to-day looks like.
Okay, so day to day, it's 6:30, almost 7, get up, and pretty much work till I go to sleep, with a few breaks in between. Me being a solo, I run my own practice. I do transactional law, so we do residential real estate and commercial real estate. It's a lot of juggling, it's a lot of phone calls, it's a lot of writing, it's a lot of reading, and it's a lot of putting out fires. Anyone I know of Ahmad is here, and he knows these transactions are very difficult to get to the end, but it is communicating, it is having a lot of energy. You need a lot of energy. I'm not really a big coffee guy, but coffee's a part of the day now because of the practice, and it is involving bringing people together, convincing people things, and facilitating the transactions. It's a lot of moving parts. Every transaction has, 10 to 12 different persons involved, where you have 2 attorneys, you have 2 brokers, you have a mortgage person, you have a home inspector, you have the appraiser, and then you have the friends and family who all tell people things and they don't listen to their lawyers. So you have to juggle all of that. So it is a lot of work. It is intense work, but I wake up every day, for the most part, happy. I love what I do. I love helping people purchase their first home. Some people purchase their dream homes. I currently represent an NBA basketball player who just purchased a home in Saddle River for several $1 million. He also just sold his home. So I've met a lot of celebrities. And as I mentioned again, I was able to help our community. And when the PAC idea that was developing, and Obama and the group that organized and made PAC started to ask me for my assistance and guidance in helping them secure this property, the property across the street, the lot next door. It's been very rewarding to give back to the community, be a part of the community, and the practice of law and being on my own has given me the ability to be here with the community, to always be connected to the community. And that's why what I mentioned earlier to you guys is no matter where you are, no matter what you decide to do with a law degree or any firm you're in or any job you're in, just know that you are Palestinian and be proud, be loud. I think it's become a lot cooler to be Palestinian now, whereas I started 18 years ago, and I can tell you there wasn't many of us 18 years ago. And I started in the courtroom, so I would go to every courthouse for the most part, north and south, anywhere I needed to go, I would go. And I would walk into places, and my name was Mahmoud Mustafa, and I'm representing Muhammad Ahmed, and it was very challenging, to say the least. There's a lot of racism out there, of Islamophobia, and to be able to now see it all come full circle and be in a room like this where I see young people excited to get into the law, and then to have people, like these wonderful attorneys here, and there's a bunch of us that are willing to guide you and help you. We didn't have a lot of that. There was a few, I have to say, like Judge Hani Mola was one of my mentors, and Ahmed Awad was also there for me. But now there's so many of us that you can tap into and get the help and get the encouragement. So, don't take this lightly. This is a wonderful community, and the Palestinian American Bar Association is a wonderful organization. I know they had their first gala this year. I wasn't able to attend, but it was like 600-700 members, and it was a beautiful event. And people called me after and said how amazing it was. So, just really tap into the community. This is what this is about, and don't be surprised that your little contribution of telling people you're Palestinian and being proud of it, no matter where you are, it changes people's opinions. And as you all have seen, their opinions have shifted dramatically on Palestine. And I hope that everyone will feel comfortable to do their part. Even if you change one person, you've contributed.
So for me, a typical day, like if I could sum up on average, I have a long-term project and I have short-term projects. So as the deputy county attorney, we get sued and I have to defend the county. And the types of cases we get, we have a jail. New York has a jail, so there's a prisoner who will sue us, claiming that his civil rights has been violated. So it takes a lot of preparation, and I have to connect and trust with the warden. If you're the warden of a jail, you're very tough, and but still you gotta meet them where they are and connect with them so they can trust you to get the information that you want from them. I have another case where it's not so nice to talk about because it involves abuse. In New York, they passed a law that allowed victims of, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Catholic Church, they abused children 30, 40 years ago. In our world, you can't, if something happened to you 30, 40 years ago, you're barred from bringing a claim 30, 40 years later because your time to bring that up passed. So they passed the law, and these three individuals sued us. They're suing us now, and I'm representing the county, and they claim that when they were in foster care, that they were abused, that they were sexually abused. Now, that's not a nice thing to grapple with. And they're claiming that the county knew or should have known that they were being abused. So you have to ask yourself, like, how do you defend the county against a claim like that? And it's not easy, but you have to, the way I take the case is, I think that the person probably was abused, and there's no evidence that there was a social worker who saw the abuse and just said, I don't care. That didn't happen. So I'm going to have to confirm a jury of about 6 to 12 people, and I have to present myself in a way that's convincing that I really believe that the county is not responsible for their harm that happened 40 years ago. I do believe that you have to be unstable to make up a story like that. So I have to deal with it with a sense of sensitivity to the victim, but at the same time, I don't think that the county is responsible for the bad thing that they've experienced. So when I say that to you, you might feel uncomfortable, but that's the kind of thing that you have to sort of think through. I'm not saying you have to do that specifically, but it is grappling with really uncomfortable subjects. So those are my long-term projects, and in the short term, I represent the county, so we have different departments. We have Public Works, HR. People come to you and they say, hey, I got this problem, and they expect you to know the answer. So I'll never presume to know. I think that's really a skill, because you feel embarrassed. You say, I don't know. They come to you and they say, what's the answer? So I think that if you say, when I say, I don't know, I'll get back to you, I have to research it, they do trust you. Because what's worse is saying, yeah, it's this, and then you get it wrong. I think a lot of people sometimes feel tempted just to give an answer to a question they don't know fully. So it does take time, and it takes research, and people rely on you, and that's a great responsibility to deal with.
I would say I don't have like an average day to day, and I'm sure everyone else agrees, like it's not the same thing every day. There's always something new that you're working on. Like I said, I do transactional work, which means I don't get in front of the judge. I'm not really in a courtroom. I'm not working on, complaints or anything like that. And my projects are almost all short term. What I do is I help companies buy and sell other companies or private equity firms, which are basically just entities with a lot of money who all they do is buy and sell companies. And so a lot of that looks like, if you're representing a client who's buying a company, you're going to that company you're buying and you're reading every single contract that company has ever entered into and telling your client, all right, this is what you're going to be beholden to if you buy this company. You're looking at, treatment of employees, is everything, clean there? What are the regulatory issues with this company? You basically investigate the company for your client, and while you're doing that, you're also negotiating the agreement that actually you will enter into to do the sale. So it's a lot of that, because that's primarily my practice, but I do a lot of we'll do random side things. Like for example, before I came here, I was drafting a agreement where a shareholder of a company was going to borrow money from the company, right? And I've never done something like that before, so that takes a long time when you're trying to figure out how to put one of those things together. It's a lot of people on every single, we call them deals, not cases. So there's a lot of people, minimum on, my team representing one client is usually about 12 lawyers. And the other side also has 12 lawyers. You have your general corporate lawyers like me, then you have an employment lawyer and an environmental lawyer and a regulatory lawyer, and always tax lawyers on everything. And then you've got another 12 lawyers on the other side. And the client is usually you're dealing with 5 different people, and then you're dealing with a bunch of investment bankers. So it's a lot of people to manage. It's a lot of different work streams that all go on at once. And you're also working on multiple deals at one time. So it definitely is tough. I'm a 4th-year associate, so I'm still a little bit more on the junior side, which means you get paid for your availability and not for your knowledge, because you don't really know much. And so, sometimes my days are 8 hours long, sometimes my days are 17 hours long, and you're working from 7 a.m. to 4 a.m., and that's just what is needed to get the deal done whenever the done, so, it's definitely not a 9 to 5. I don't know if there are any, like, lawyer roles that are 9 to 5s, but mine definitely is almost never that. Like, I left the office today at 5:30, and I walked by the partner I was working for, and she was like, "Oh, you're clocking out early today." And so I like laughed and said, "No, I'll be back on, at 9 p.m., when I get back home," and I will be, so I would say that's my day today. Not super rosy.
You're scaring them off.
I know, someone's got to tell you, because no one told me.
I'll go over my experience really quickly. Like I said, I currently do juvenile justice in New York, so I represent kids between the ages of 12 to 17, sometimes they turn 18, while I still represent them from the moment they're arrested to kind of the end of their case. And it really depends, honestly, on the client. Sometimes they didn't do it, and those are the most fun cases, honestly, proving innocence. Sometimes they did half of it, sometimes there's a good excuse for it, and sometimes there's not. Like, it really depends. And I especially like working with kids because I feel like their circumstances and their experiences shape who they are. And there's there's a lot of science on adolescent brain development. Like, a lot of you guys are teenagers, your brain is still developing. Your brain doesn't really fully develop until you're 25 years old, and that's when you're like a better decision maker. And even then, like, you're still growing. So it's just like, for me, I love that part about it, just like advocating for them in the courtroom, whether that's like making sure they get to go home, making sure they get services, and just like outside of the courtroom. So making sure they're in school, sometimes they need therapy. I don't think I've ever had a client who like didn't have some type of trauma going on or some type of help. Sometimes they just require for help for action. So most of my days are in the courtroom, whether for like conferences where we're just talking about the evidence or having the kids go home, and sometimes for something called hearings. Does anyone know what the Fourth Amendment is? Fourth Amendment, it's pretty much says that police can't just stop you on the street. So a lot of the times, some of my clients are found with things that they shouldn't have for their safety, they claim. So I do like Fourth Amendment hearings called suppression hearings, where I challenge the way the police officers stop my clients. And those are my favorite types of hearings to do, because it's like yes, I'm kind of at a disadvantage because something was found on my client, whether that's like a small knife or a gun or whatever. But the point is that there are so many young kids who are racially profiled and who are stopped, and these cops just keep getting away with it. And we never hear about the times that cops stop people and find nothing and like really invade on a person's just on their own person. So that's why I like those types of hearings. And then we go to trial sometimes as well. So that's really what my day-to-day is. So I'm going to ask one more question to the panel, and then I want you guys to think about something that you have a question about, even if it already passed and it was during the PowerPoint or about something someone said. I promise you there are no dumb questions at all. Okay, so my question for the panelists is, I think we all, or most of us, have heard a lot, you argue a lot, you'd be a good lawyer. What, in you guys' opinion, are the traits that actually do make a good lawyer?
Good question.
It doesn't have to be you first, whoever wants to go first.
I think if your parents say you argued a lot, then the next part is you're not going to get married. I think that, if I were 16, 17, 18, going into my 20s, I did not have the skills to be a lawyer because of who I was, and that was fine. I think that if I could say, that person has the potential to be a good lawyer, I would say that person could read a text and interpret it. Something that involves interpretation, I think it's a really good skill. So when you're in English class and you're trying to figure out the intention of the author or what this poem means, and that you can be then persuasive about it, I think those are really good skills, because you do, in the end, are trying to persuade someone why one point is correct and another isn't so strong. I think that in addition to what Mahmoud said earlier, people skills, of course, you have to relate to people. Writing, of course, but if I could say something, if I could add on, I would say interpretation.
I think that, at least in transactional practice, it's a lot more helpful to be collaborative. I would say when you're a corporate lawyer, in my experience, things are much less adversarial. Like, it's not like a zero-sum game, almost like litigation is, where it's like, I'm suing you and I want something from you, and there's a winner and there's a loser. In transactional practice, we say, well, everyone's a winner. I want to sell you this thing for a good price, and you really want to buy this thing for a good price. So it's a lot about negotiation and coming up with creative solutions on how everybody can be like as happy as they can be with, whatever the deal ends up being. So I think being collaborative, I think being creative with what potential solutions could be. And I actually think being friendly will get you a lot further. In most circumstances, there's some lawyers I come across that are just not friendly and don't respond well to being friendly. But I would say for the most part, when you are friendly and you are collaborative, you get a lot more pull from whoever you're negotiating against than when you're being mean or you're being argumentative or you're being stubborn and you say it's this way or the highway. Nobody wants to work with you and no one wants to negotiate with you, and people kind of like go back into their position and they say, no, this is what I have, leave it on the table.
I think where that comes from, where when people they argue and they say, oh, you're going to be a great lawyer, everyone thinks you're always like every lawyer's in court, law and order, like a criminal trial. That's not. There's so many different areas of the law where you need to be like she said, more friendly. I think for me it's about managing people. I think that's kind of how I feel like I've developed the skill of managing people, and not in a way where I'm like making people like do things. It's just like being persuasive to get, for me, for the transaction. Because that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. And I was on the other side where I was in the courts, where it was a little more adversarial and you really got to fight a little more. But on the transactional side, it's really about getting everyone to just come together. A lot of times, I'll just give you examples on a personal transaction where people are just very emotional. There's a lot, especially these days, everything's so expensive. It's hard to get a home these days. So I often get clients that are really, really like, when they get to me, they're already rattled. They're already just freaking out about the whole transaction, the whole process, and getting them to kind of remove emotion from the transaction and to understand that it's really a business transaction. Treat it that way. So I've had people literally want to blow up a deal, and we call them transactions, deals, not cases. So they'll literally want to blow up the deal for the smallest of things, a couple of $100, and we're talking about $800,000 transaction, $1 million transaction, and they'll want to terminate the entire transaction because they personally feel insulted when the seller says, well, I'm not going to repair this item. So managing those situations is one of the things that I think is a skill. If you can develop that, you can definitely get into the transactional side of the law. On the other end, yes, absolutely, you have to be able to, be very persuasive and get your point across. And doing that, it requires just, for me, it's people skills, and just keep on developing those skills.
And I'll just add, I think I said this earlier, I think the trait that would make a good lawyer and just like a good person to become a lawyer is determination, as cheesy as that sounds. I think if you're determined and you're passionate, you can get through whatever it is, whether it's the LSAT, or law school itself, or the bar exam, or whatever, is thrown your way when you're a lawyer. So now we'll turn it over to questions. Do you have any questions?
I'm just gonna end the line.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you to our amazing panelists. Give them a round of applause. We're going to open it to questions now, but I also want to encourage the people on live to join us in person in future events, and to let us know what other kind of events we should have like this. And honestly, I always say this, our community has such powerhouses and such amazing people, and they've paved the road for the generations to come. So this is the time to learn from their experience, to lean into what they've been through, so that hopefully you can pave the road for the generations to come. So let's give them another round of applause.
You can say your name and your question.
So my name is Tagat. I'm actually currently a 1L. And I was just wondering if you guys have